When Kobe and I decided to create a podcast and coined it the Father Son Podcast, most would feel this is a gimmick for the podcast, and that couldn't be further from the truth. From the day Kobe was born, I introduced him to video games. This was a way of life for me, as I can remember my father buying me the Odyssey home system, where the cellophane field that clung to the TV determined what game you were playing. Kobe's love for video games grew, as did the bond of a father and a son. When I introduced him to online play, his world opened to new heights. He learned quickly that the incredible gaming experience wasn't just something shared between a father and a son, but there was an entire world that shared his passion for gaming. Gaming was just part of his upbringing, as school or sports was. We always made arrangements that a video game experience was just an arm's length away, even when we went on vacation. As Kobe got older, our experience took us to the road, experiencing events like the Great E3 to more modern events like Summer Game Fest, the Xbox Experience, IGN, and PAX. Kobe graduated from college and now works in the video game industry on the Xbox team. So, as you can see, it was nothing but natural progression to now share our experience and love of the industry through our podcast. Now sit back and enjoy the ride.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Father and Son Gaming Podcast right here on Active Reload Gaming. I would like to welcome each and every one of you. My name is Kobe, aka Kobe127. That is Kevin, aka Octane699. Dad, how you doing? We're 1 week out from PAX West at this point. We had a lot of cool stuff happening. How you feeling since then?
I actually was a little tired because we backed a lot into 2 days of the 4 days that the PAX went on, but I'm recouping and I'm actually looking forward to some of the games that we did see and that we did review, and super excited that we had our first dev on last week.
Yeah, for sure. I think the Valor Mortis interview went super well. I was glad to be able to get those developers on and talk about one of our most anticipated games coming out in 2026, and actually getting our hands on the sticks at the show was honestly pretty awesome to fully experience what that game is going to be. I think they had a wonderful vertical slice that they had presenting on the show floor. So yeah, being able to actually speak to them and now seeing them going back heads down developing is going to be pretty cool to see what the final product's going to be. And if people did miss the Valor Mortis developer interview, you can find it on our YouTube channel. We did cut out that portion of the podcast, and it's its own video on Active Reload Gaming. So feel free to check it out. There's a lot of great insight that the devs gave, and I appreciate if you check it. Besides that, how else are you doing?
Not too bad. I actually, for the retro gamers in our viewership, I actually bought an Atari Jaguar this weekend from of course my favorite brick and mortar store, Planet Retro Games. So I bought that. I'm eager to play it, and I did it backwards. I actually bought a game out in Seattle before I had the console, and then I had to go buy the console. So
what game did you buy?
I bought Alien versus Predator. So for those of you that don't know, it's a pretty cool, if you like the old school Doom, imagine being Predator looking like the old school Doom. So I'm super excited to play that. Didn't get a chance to play it because I've been too busy playing Gears of War right now.
So why did you get an Atari Jaguar?
Why not?
I guess fair enough.
It's funny. Atari, I had the first two Atari systems because, again, growing up, I've been a gamer. Atari Jaguar, I don't know why, but I kind of skipped over that console. I skipped over a couple, and now, I'm going back to buy them and replay them because, again, I am a retro gamer at heart as well as new games.
I mean, yeah, I have never touched the Jaguar. I saw the picture you sent me of the controller, and I don't think I want to touch the Jaguar at this point. That controller is kind of hideous to look at. I honestly don't know how it's going to fit in the hands or how it's even going to play. But funny enough that before we start moving on to other things, you were talking about the Alien versus Predator on Jaguar. I was actually scrolling through TikTok last night. By the way, speaking of that, good segue. We're currently live on TikTok.
How long?
For how long is the question, but we're currently on here, and we'd like to welcome all of our TikTok viewers into the stream. I hope every one of you stay and have a great time hearing us talk about video games. And today we're going to be doing our Gears of War Reloaded review, along with the Metal Gear Solid Delta review, along with talking about our remakes, remasters. Good for the industry because these were two high profile, whatever you want to call them, to come out at the end of August. We've both been playing them. We've been heads down playing them, and we both have come with a lot of thoughts. So I'm excited to actually get into it. But yeah, so I was scrolling through TikTok, and I had actually seen that someone was in like a brick and mortar store with something in England, and they actually had a CIB AVP for the Jaguar behind the glass. So it was cool to see it in the box itself.
It's really cool.
Yeah, PAX was great. I'm happy we were able to get out and do that. Saw a lot of great games. All of our coverage is here on the YouTube channel or TikToks and Instagrams. You can go find us, which, would like to get into some housekeeping for today. As a reminder, all of our socials can be found right up here on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. We are at Active Reload Gaming, and then on Twitter or X and Twitch we are Active Rel Gaming. That is with an REL. Alongside that, you should see this QR code right up here. That is our Discord. Feel free to scan it. Join our Discord community. We're trying to build it and get a lot of people chatting in there about all things video games or whatever else comes to mind. So it'd be great if you guys can come join that and start chatting with us.
It's funny you talk about the Jaguar controller because I think it was on our Discord when I posted it that it was a pickup. Somebody had talked about, wow, what's that controller? How are you going to like that? I said, I grew up playing with the Xbox Duke, and I also like my Dreamcast. Any of them that's seen the Dreamcast controller, this controller will be no problem whatsoever.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I still think, we've came a long way to get to controllers of this generation, to say the least. Like, I think the PS5 and the Xbox Series X controllers are some of the best controllers ever made, and we shouldn't take them for granted. We could easily have an N64 controller nowadays. We can easily have whatever that behemoth is. Like, I don't see how that is comfortable at all to play. Why is there 12 buttons on the bottom? Like, it just makes no sense. We can keep certain things gone. Moving along with housekeeping, I do want to.
Long way.
We have come a long way. I do want to get into the schedule for some upcoming podcasts. So next week, we're going to be doing another review, and this one's going to be of Chronos: The New Dawn. My dad and I have been playing the game, and we are almost finished with the game, so we'd like to get our review out and actually talk about that game, because my oh my, what a surprising horror game that is. And we're also going to talk about why indies and the AA game space truly matters, as we even see in Hollow Knight Silksong come out last week and absolutely take the world by storm, with it even crashing the Steam storefront and Nintendo storefront. So indies and AA games are leading this generation, and I think it's an interesting conversation to have. September 22nd, we're going to be going over, can live service games truly work, and a Helldivers 2 review 1 year later. I want to talk about that because I've been playing a lot of Helldivers 2 recently. I got back into it when it came on Xbox, but I've been playing it on my PC. And through all the updates that came out, Helldivers 2 is in a very good and interesting spot. So I want to do kind of a retrospect, talk about that game 1 year later, along with kind of going over just the live service games in general, as that is a huge part of the gaming industry today. September 29th, we're going to be reviewing the Tokyo Game Show 2025. The weekend that right before September 29th, Tokyo Game Show is happening. A lot of news coverage is going to be coming out of that. Xbox is going to be having a big presence there, as they announced, along with actual Kojima Productions doing the Beyond the Strand stream, where he's going to be talking about what comes after Death Stranding 2. So there's going to be a lot of things happening at the Tokyo Game Show that's going to be super exciting. And then October 6th is the start of Spooky Month. So who doesn't love a good horror? And we've been talking about horror games kind of consistently recently on the podcast, as my dad has found a new love for them out of nowhere. So what better way to do that than then talk about the art of horror games? What makes a good horror game? What scares you? What do you look for? Along with reviewing Silent Hill F, because that is going to come out the week prior. We should have played it, beaten it at that point, and have our thoughts well gestated by then. So we have a lot of good stuff coming in the pipeline, and even more exciting stuff in the future. We are planning a lot of different podcasts with different people. But beyond October 6th, we've talked about it before, but we're going to have a professional NASCAR driver on the show to interview them about what it's like to actually go into the development of a sports game and what you actually provide to it. Dad, do you want to say anything about that show coming up?
No, the NASCAR driver, you can look him up, as Ryan Ellis. He's been a driver for quite some time, and we want to get into not only the questions about the NASCAR and how it goes, but he is a gamer.
Yeah.
So we want to talk about, again, I said this once before, that sometimes people get pigeonholed in, oh, he's a NASCAR driver, but he is one of our communities. So I think it's going to be cool to kind of pull back the NASCAR veil and really see what makes him tick and what he likes to play when he's gaming.
100%. I think that's going to be a super interesting conversation because even though I'm not the biggest sports gamer person in the world, I used to play a lot of them when I was younger, but I've kind of fallen off. But I'm still very curious about the process that actually goes into it and kind of learning like what these athletes actually provide. I think that's going to be very interesting. So with that, I would like to start moving on into our reviews of Gears of War Reloaded and Metal Gear Solid Delta. But before that, there's a whole conversation out there that needs to be had. I want to start with some definition groundwork first, for which is, what is a remaster? What is a remake? What is the difference? Let's have that conversation now before we actually move into these games, because then we can clearly define whether or not these are remasters or remakes.
Okay, so I'm going to start off with a remaster. A remaster is, think of it as polishing up the original. The core game, engine, mechanics, story, level design stay the same. Developers update the graphics, resolution, textures, lighting, and maybe the sound quality so it looks and feels smoother on a modern system. Sometimes small quality of life tweaks are added, like better controls, faster loading. An example of a remaster that might hit home for a lot of people is The Last of Us remaster. PS4 took the PS3 game and made it just sharper, faster, and prettier. That is the definition of a remaster. So basically, to boil it down, a remaster, same skeleton, shinier skin. Now, when we go into what a remake definition is, this is a full rebuild from the ground up. The developers often use a new engine, redo the graphics, the animation, and sometimes even rework the gameplay mechanics. A remake may stay faithful to the original story, but it can also change pacing, levels, and add entirely new content to it. Example of a good remake is the most recent Resident Evil 2019. Isn't just the old PS1 game with better visuals. It's essentially a modern game built on the bones of a classic, but remade into the modern age. So again, a remake, to break it down, is rebuild the skeleton, the muscles, and the skin, but to keep the same soul to it. So this way we kind of understand the true definition of what the difference is of remaster, just making it shinier, to remake, rebuilding the story from the ground up, but kind of keeping its soul to it.
Before I start kind of chiming in, just got a couple things from chat. Going back, Rampage says that controller's a monster for the Jaguar. Then Darkness Knight says, think they remake Resident Evil Code Veronica. I think so. I think that's going to be the next logical step. I think they're going to go back to some of the more original Resident Evils, and wouldn't even be surprised if they remade Resident Evil 1. I know they already had remastered that game at a certain point, but I do think you're going to see some of these older titles. And Veronica is a cult classic. Like it's a phenomenal game. So I do think they will be remaking that at some point.
I do have just to kind of flex a little bit there, talking about the Resident Evil Code Veronica. I do collect older games, older consoles as well. I do have the Dreamcast Veronica game. I think there was only 1,500 or 1,800 of them made.
You mean the console?
A console.
Yeah.
It's actually on the back of this shelf. I have it. It's the kind of translucent maroon console. Incredible. If you haven't seen it and you're a Veronica fan, look it up. It's pretty sweet.
So looping back now, going back to your definition of a remaster and remake, with people coming into the chat. Hello, Shem. Welcome to the podcast. So we have stated that a remaster is like Last of Us remastered, going from PS3 to PS4, but a remake is Resident Evil 2 going from the PS1 to the PS4, Xbox One, completely a new game. Before we get into the review, where does like an Oblivion remastered fit? Because Oblivion remastered, this is where the definition starts to get a little interesting.
Blurry.
Because technically, it's in a new engine. It's the brains and the skeleton of the game is still in the creation engine, but it is also built. Unreal Engine 5 is built upon the creation engine to give a whole new look, new gameplay mechanics, new performance, modernizing it. Like the gameplay of Oblivion had changed a little bit, going from the 360 to the newer version. So where do you think that fits? Because this is going to help me coming into Metal Gear Solid Delta a little bit later.
That's a tough one, because I think that kind of fits in between both of them.
Yeah.
So I do believe that as we get further along, and I don't want to bring up Xbox, but Xbox has an AI software that will take older games and, I don't want to say upconvert or, remaster into newer console games. I think you're going to see a lot more of that. And I think that remaster / remake line is going to get blurred just a little bit. But I still have to go back to the Oblivion. If you forced me to say what is Oblivion, I'd still say that it's a remaster.
I mean, I think that's why the devs put the title remastered on it anyway. So knowing that and knowing all this, I think it's good to have that definition. Let's get into our very first reviews for the show. And we're going to start with Gears of War Reloaded. We both been playing it, but you are kind of the lead reviewer on this one, being that Gears of War is your favorite franchise of all time. So I'm very curious to actually get into your thoughts and what you think about this game. So how many hours did you put into Gears of War Reloaded?
Well, I'm 95% finished the console. I mean the campaign.
Have you played any multiplayer?
I have played some multiplayer, but okay. As we've talked about in the past, it's, as you get older, the multiplayer gets a little bit grindy for me. So
what platforms did you play this game on? Because obviously it's out on Xbox, PS5, PC. So what platforms did you play it on?
I played it on my Xbox console and I played it on the PS5. I started with the PS5 because, let me tell you, being a Gears fan that I am, I don't know that it was horrifying. I don't know if it was exciting. I don't know if it was shameful. I didn't know what my emotions were bringing me when I was chainsawing, actually holding the PlayStation controller.
Rampage asks, is this multi? Yes, this game is multi-platform. This is the first time Gears of War has been on everything, minus Switch. May come at a certain point. No one really knows just yet. Kyle says multiplayer is rough, which I kind of agree. To me, so I put 10 hours, 11 hours into this game. 8 of those hours were multiplayer, and the other remaining were the campaign. You and I played co-op on this. We got to pretty much the end of Act 2 on insane difficulty. But before I get back to you, I just will say it is crazy to me that even 20 years later, they still don't know how to balance the Nasher in
let me
multiplayer.
Tell you, just today, I read that they're bringing an update for the Nasher.
Okay.
And just back to Kyle, multiplayer is rough. When you're a noob with a potato aim, I guess it would be rough.
Okay, old man's talking smack over here for no reason. Let's put you into the Thunderdome and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
But so, giving all that, I would like to start actually kind of diving into your thoughts, but I want to go very high level. What would you score Gears of War Reloaded, and what are your high level thoughts of the game?
Before I get into that, I think that just because we gave the remaster remake, I want to just take a step back and explain. Gears of War the original, was released in 2006 on the Xbox 360. That was built in Unreal Engine 3. And this is, again, Kyle says, take it easy. I am, brother. And then when they came out with Gears of War Ultimate Edition in 2015, this is where, again, the remake remaster gets a little fuzzy. They took the Ultimate Edition in 2015 and still kept it in the Unreal Engine 3, but the graphics and performance, they took some elements from Unreal Engine 4 just to kind of make the graphics and performance a little bit better. Now we fast forward to the Gears of War Reloaded in 2025, obviously made for the Series X and PlayStation and everything else. That again is just still the base of it is Unreal Engine 3, but they took the graphics and performance elements to upscale it or to help it out from Unreal Engine 5. So all they did different from the Ultimate Edition to the Reloaded was still the base of it is Unreal Engine 3, but this time they took graphic and performance elements from Unreal 5 to kind of upscale that.
And which, from a technical standpoint, the Unreal Engine 5 allowed for the 4K textures that you're seeing on screen. Along with, this is the first time that it is proprietary 60 frames in campaign, with the caveat of you could play Ultimate Edition on the Series X, and it would convert the frame rate to a 60 frame. But when Ultimate Edition first launched on Xbox One, it was locked to 30 frames in the campaign, 60 frames multiplayer. But this time around, it's 60 frames campaign, up to 120 frames on multiplayer. So that is what the Unreal Engine 5 is kind of doing the heavy lifting for here.
But now for multiplayer, it's 120 hertz.
Yeah.
For with the 4K, which again from the campaign, it looks incredible and runs incredible. I did get 120 FPS multiplayer, and it was butter.
Yeah.
Like, let's go back to the original Gears of War and play that, man. It was tough back then because, as Kyle had said, it's rough. It's a rough game. I mean, you are sweating the multiplayer, but that's the way that it's always been. This isn't something new. And I thought that I'd be able to get on to some new PlayStation noobs and wreck them, but they've been pretty solid at it as well. Yeah. So, I think the performance that they did was outstanding. Some of the other things that I saw that came out for me is the color adjustments really worked well in Reloaded. I think the way that they made the color palette a little bit more vibrant without losing the charm of the original. Because when you go back to the original, it was gritty. That was what was appealing to it. But I think they brought the vibrant color to it without destroying the history of what the game actually was. Because if you fast forward into like Gears 4 and Gears 5, I mean, it's way too much color for the Gears world. That's why I'm hoping for E-Day. They kind of, I would love for them to bring it to the Reloaded color palette of what you see. So I think that they hit it out of the park with the color. One of the other things that I really think they hit out of the park, the lighting was really amped up. I thought the way that they played with the lighting and the Reload really helped the story, because if you go back to Gears, the original Gears, and even because I went back, just so you know, I went back and played maybe about an hour or so of the Ultimate Edition, and the lighting wasn't as great. Like there's things in dark areas that I see with Reloaded that I never saw even in the Ultimate Edition. And then when look at the comparisons back to the original, it was night and day. And what I like about it, being the true Gears fan, is I think you're starting to see what the artist really wanted to convey. Because if you really go back to the original Gears, and I'm not going to go into that story, but it's fascinating how one game actually changed what the hardware was going to be on the 360. Like Epic Games dictated, because Microsoft was going to come out with the Xbox 360 at certain specs, and you could go back and look at it. But when they wanted Gears to be exclusive, Epic stepped up and said, "Look, your system isn't powerful enough for what we want to do." So they actually, it doesn't happen that often, but a game dictated to the manufacturer what the specs were going to be, not the other way around. So again, it was running and it was revolutionizing what it was doing back in the 360 day. I think this just kind of helped out with it.
Before we continue with more of the conversation here, Kyle does comment, and I want to get your opinion on this as the resident Gears of War fan. Kyle says, I feel like it's great that they brought it to the PlayStation, but I think it should have been more. With the Ultimate Edition already existing, I think bringing Gears 2 and even 3 should have been the goal. 3-game package would have been fire.
Here's my take on that. And I used to agree with you, Kyle, on this. Like, that was my thought. But it's all about money, and it's about setting things up. One, look at it this way. If they would have brought out the 3-pack right out of the gate, they would have charged what, $50 for it, $60 for it. Now, when they separate it, one, now they're charging $30 to $40 per game, so they're going to get more out of those. Two, in hindsight, after playing it on the PlayStation 5, I'm glad they didn't, because then that's kind of my next thing. Like the DualSense, even though I'm an Elite controller fan, I think that's the best controller on the market. When I played with the DualSense and how they put in, the trigger haptic feedback and stuff, man, I became a PlayStation Gears fan pretty quick. I think my experience was much better on the Reload with PlayStation than it was on the Gears, and I played both of on the Xbox. I jumped back and forth on purpose to see, and I really liked that feedback on the dual sensor. So I agree with you, Kyle, until I really thought of how they're going to roll this out. Now, my opinion, how they're going to do it is they're easing the PlayStation fan base into the bath, get them to see this, how to upscale it even more than the Ultimate, so they get the true experience with it, using what features the new PlayStation 5 has. They'll roll out 2 and then 3 before E-Day, I hope. So I'm with you, because 2 and 3, 2 of my favorite. 2 is my favorite in the series. 3 is my second favorite. They have gotten no love whatsoever. So I'm hoping that this is the resurrection of that love, and I think they're going to roll them out before E-Day, so that the PlayStation fan base would 100% be able to see. I mean, Judgment's on the edge there, but I think the first 3 you need to see before going back to E-Day.
I think they do Judgment at some point. I think they'll package it probably with another one. Maybe Gears 3 they'll package it with or something. We'll see. We're kind of looping back. So from what I hear, you like the PS5 version better than the Xbox version. Do you think it's the definitive version? So when you're looking at Gears of War 1 as a game and someone has never played it, where do you point them to play at this point? Obviously, the game's platform agnostic. So where would you say this is the definitive experience to experience Gears of War 1 for the first time?
And this is tough for me to even say. But I think the graphics look better on PlayStation 5, and I just think that the DualSense with the haptic feedback, it made it more pleasurable for me. Now, I did not play it on PC, which I do have it on PC as well. I just didn't get a chance to see how that runs on my beast of a rig, to see how that is up. So for me to say, what would you recommend platform to play it on, I can only say the Xbox Series X console versus the PlayStation 5. And out of those two, I'd say PlayStation 5.
So I tried the PC version for a little bit, and I was honestly kind of disappointed with it. It is my least favorite version of Reloaded. It came out swinging with a lot of problems. One of the major issues with the PC version at launch was if you would switch the game to 4K, then close it, it would never launch up again. You had to go into the file system and actually kind of figure out a file and folder that you needed to get rid of in order to even allow the game to boot up again. But besides that, so I have an ultra-wide monitor. The game does not have ultra-wide support. It is the highest it goes is 4K, and that could be a engine limitation or because of the game. Like, I'm not sure why it doesn't have ultra wide support, but it was a little disappointing to see a modern release not have that. Also, when trying to connect co-op with you between PC and Xbox, we ran into a lot of issues that I finally said, like, I'm done with trying with this. I'm just going to hop over to the Xbox version. I mean, play wise, it felt great to play it on the PC. But you can get that experience on the consoles as well. So going through the campaign itself, do you think that this was what's the word I'm looking for? Do you think this remaster was justified? Do you think the campaign has felt better? Did you run into any issues with the campaign? Let's go over the general flow of the campaign.
Well, again, I have to take a step back. I think why it was warranted, and again, I was totally different before I played it on PlayStation. Why it was warranted instead of just keeping the Ultimate is because they had to make it for the features of the PlayStation 5. That's, in my opinion, solely my humble opinion, that is the only reason why they had to do this reloaded. And I'll tell you what I really love about this, and this is really hitting home for me because I'm an achievement hunter. I don't really care about my trophies on PlayStation, but I am an achievement hunter on my Xbox. And I love this cross progression, just so people kind of understand. When I load up on my PlayStation, I can technically log into my Microsoft account on PlayStation. So what happens is when I open up, achievements on the PlayStation trophy, i.e. trophies, if I log into my Xbox and log into that, they transfer over.
Along with all of your other stats that you've accumulated.
Correct. So I am super stoked about that because it's always been, if it comes out on PlayStation and it comes out on Xbox, I'm picking Xbox because one, I like the ecosystem better. Two, I'm an achievement hunter. But seeing this now, I really, really do like that cross progression. And I'll just tell you one last thing that I think really hit with this reloaded is, and I've noticed it, the sound that they've enhanced in this is superior. Like everything hits harder, it's crunchier, and those that play Gears will understand this. The headshot sound effect is so powerful now that I think they definitely worked on. If you go back to my remake remaster, examples, I think they definitely enhanced the sound in this because the sound is more incredible than the Ultimate or the original. So I'm super stoked about that. But to kind of get to I didn't have many negatives, but one of the big negatives I found was I needed to restart a couple checkpoints where it wouldn't let me advance on the PlayStation. Like I would finish all of the enemies in the area, and anybody that plays Gears, that there's a sound effect when you clear everything out, and then you can move on to the next. Like I wasn't getting the sound effect; I was still getting the music playing, but it wouldn't advance me. And that's happened a couple different places, a couple different times that I'd have to go back and restart the actual level so that I can advance. So that happened. And the other thing, and I know they've never been outstanding, but the AI in comparison to the Ultimate and the original, I think the AI got worse. Like I think
they're pretty brain dead.
my companions are worthless. They don't shoot anything. They're always in my way. They're always dying that I got to run back and revive them. Like I think the AI got super dumb.
And I think it's really unfortunate that they can't revive you in like co-op. If you go down, it does get kind of annoying. So with all that, also Kyle in the chat says didn't know that like the cross progression was a thing. That's pretty sweet. Yeah, I think that is like the future of gaming is cross progression. That no matter what platform you are on, like your stats will transfer. I think that is an absolute must nowadays. I think it's such a good feature to have.
Now, Kobe, I don't know if you know this because this is the first Xbox game that I played on PlayStation, but Like if I went over to Sea of Thieves, does that do the same thing?
Yes, and so does like Forza and all that.
Oh wow, that's great.
That's Xbox initiative is the Play Anywhere, and that's what they've been pushing. So, with all that being said, I got two more questions. The first one being, does Gears of War still hold up in today's standards?
It does. Here's the thing. Like when you play it, you could tell that it's not a 2025 game, but I still think that it's one of the better, like when you think that this was created in 2006, I think it 100% holds up. And again, I gave this feeling numerous times in other podcasts, but I hope they keep remaking this game for every platform that comes out. And you know what? I'll play it on every platform that comes out, and I'll buy it.
So, what would you score Gears of War Reloaded at the end of the day?
All right.
Out
It
of
kills
10.
me that I can't get a 10 out of 10. It kills me. But Kobe said, I want you to be realistic. I give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay. That's, I've been playing, I have not finished the campaign, nowhere as far as you. So, I mean, if I were to give a score, it'd probably be in between a 7 or an 8 right now. I would say like high 7. I've mainly been in the multiplayer world. I think the multiplayer has still lots of frustrations that even 20 years later, they still haven't figured out. And it does bum me out to an extent. I do think from a remaster standpoint, like, I have to look at it from a $40 package. And from a $40 package, I think it makes sense for what is here. I think what is included, what they've done, it makes sense for the $40 price tag. So I'm not angry at that. It is still Gears of War at the end of the day. If you've experienced this game before, nothing has really changed gameplay wise. It is still the exact same game that you've come to know for 20 years.
Let me make a statement back there, though. We just got done talking about the difference between a remaster and a remake. This remake, all they did was make it shinier. So
I said it's a remaster.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is it's not a remake in the sense that you're saying it still has the problems with the multiplayer and the Nasher and all this stuff because it's just a remaster. They didn't go back and remake this. They just made it shinier.
But I feel like if you are going to be launching a game in 2025 and you are launching it with the full multiplayer suite, I would expect you to at least fix some of the problems that have been lingering forever. It can't just be, let's move everything over. You do need to address some of the problems that people have been complaining about for the longest time. And that doesn't even get into remake territory. That's just balancing territory at that point. And it needs to be balanced, and I wish they had balanced it beforehand. Because, like I said, the Nasher's been a known problem for 20 years at this point. So
the only people that say that are people that can't use the Nasher.
Okay, I would like to see you get into the matches once again. I think you've lost your touch here, so you got to cool it with the insults. But
come on now, it's all fun.
Oh yeah, I know. But if you got into the actual lobby, I would hear you screaming from Pennsylvania. So
someday we'll talk about NBA Jam, but that's
okay. Now we're just bringing up stuff that has nothing to do with the conversation. But do you have anything else to say about Gears of War Reloaded?
Yes, the final thing I'll say is, one, if you've never played the Gears of War series, it is one of the greater stories, in my opinion. I think to jump in, whether it be PC, whether it be Xbox, whether it be PlayStation, is worth the price tag. And again, I think you need to just give it a shot. And the other thing that I think that you should know, because I had said this to one of my boys, Nate, who's never played it, you cannot get Gears and jump into the multiplayer. You just can't do it. You're going to hate the game right away. One, you got to run through and play the campaign because you learn how to use the weapons and so forth. But on the other hand, it's the story that really grabs me, because I'm telling you, if you've never played it and you jump right into the multiplayer, you're going to hate it within the first 20 minutes.
100%. But before we move on to the Metal Gear Solid Delta review that I'm going to be tackling, I would like to just take a quick word and tell you about ActiveReloadGaming.com. Got games you don't play anymore? Turn that collection into cash at ActiveReloadGaming.com. It's fast, it's easy, and you get paid quick. Or if you are looking to buy, check us out on eBay or scroll through our Games by Console.
Find us at activereloadgaming.com.
And we are back. So we're going to just clear up a few comments here. Kyle says, tell Helldivers to get cross progression. Man, I wish I would have Helldivers on Xbox right now, but I'm going to stick to the PC because they don't have it. Shem says, I'm thinking I'll try the MGS remake, and I'm going to start talking about that here in a couple of minutes, so you can ask as many questions you want about the game. And then he also says, NBA Jam. Hell yes. So we got some NBA Jam lovers in the chat. One of your favorite games of all time.
Yes.
So switching gears, while you were playing Gears, I was over playing Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, and I had fully finished the game last week. The game took me about 12 hours to finish. And, coming into this review, I was a little kind of trepidatious because to me, it's one of those things. How do you review one of the most influential games of all time? And you have to admit that anytime Kojima has released a video game, it has been experimental. It has inspired so many things after, and it has really just transcended media in some capacity. Kojima makes the most wildest games of all time. Kojima has such a sense of flavor, a sense of style that no other game creator has really been able to replicate. And I don't want people to replicate it. This is Kojima's style. And I think Metal Gear is, it is one of the most popular franchises of all time. So playing this and getting ready to talk about it, I was a little scared. But, like I told you, I'm going to be truthful with myself as well. I have to be truthful about this game as a remaster or remake. So we're going to get into there, and I'm going to for the definition. So Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater is bringing back Metal Gear Solid 3. Metal Gear Solid 3 was released in 2004 for the PlayStation 2. It is an incredibly old game at this point, but it still stands the test of time and is one of the best games in the stealth genre, period. It has one of the most outlandish but beautiful stories of this genre. This game was completely rebuilt in Unreal Engine 5, but still has the same logic and skeleton of the old school Metal Gear Solid 3. So what you're seeing here is a fully revisualized game in the modern era with Unreal Engine 5, and they've also added a completely new play style to the game. Now, in this package, they also have what is called Legacy Mode, where you can play the game in its original format, but the intended experience for Delta is this new third-person action view that you are seeing. So my question to you is this a remaster or remake, being that at the end of the day, it is still Metal Gear Solid 3. It is still the same story, but it's completely new graphics. It's all the same voice acting. It's all the same audio, but it's remastered to bring it up to make it sound more modernized. Same music, but it's a completely new play style. But the old play style is still there for fans that want to experience the legacy.
Well, I would have to think, if we go back to the litmus test of what we just explained, that there's no degree of it. So to me, it sounds like it's a remake.
Yeah. And that's what I've been calling it. I've been saying this is a remake.
Yeah, because there's no degree of it. If you change the mechanics, you're looking at, well, again, when I go back and I look at this, a remaster can make the controls a little bit better. So is it that they just, modernized the controls, or is it that they changed, the pacing of it? They did entirely new content. They changed the levels.
So there is new content to the package, but the main course of the game is still the same, and the modernizing of the controls is a whole new play style. This third person point of view that you're seeing was never the original format of the game. This is a completely new format of the game, but the old format is still there if you so desire to play it. So it's kind of that in-between discussion, but I kind of lean more towards remake for this. I
do
one
as well.
So Metal Gear Solid Remake, if we look back to Metal Gear Solid 3, the original, the story has not changed, and I still think the story is absolutely phenomenal. If you don't, I'm not going to be going over any story points in this review. I think people who have never experienced the story should go and seek it out for themselves. I think it's very influential. There is a lot of stuff that hasn't aged incredibly well in this game, but I still think for the time that it was made, the story that Kojima was trying to tell, I think it's still kind of relevant, and I think it actually hits home with a lot of things happening in today's world. And I think, he was kind of ahead of his time. But from a gameplay standpoint, Metal Gear Solid Delta really made the game easy. So I think part of the charm of the old school Metal Gear Solid 3 was kind of the difficulty and roaming around these areas. And the other thing I will say is with the new gameplay style, it made these areas that you are running through actually feel pretty small. And you can actually see the limitation of the PS2 in this new play style. And if you go back to the OG style of the game, or even on the older console, you never really thought about it that way because these levels felt super expansive. They felt super wide, so much to explore, so many things to find. But the actual game itself under the new play style made it really easy to play. Like a lot of the boss fights that you do throughout this game, I remember in the old school Metal Gear Solid 3 being pretty challenging, even in the Master Collection that released a couple of years back, the package 1 through 3, just up res. It was a lot harder than Delta. Now, Delta does have many difficulty options going all the way up to European Extreme, so you can make it more challenging. You can make the stealth more challenging. You take more damage from enemies. They take more damage themselves. But yeah, it was a very interesting kind of experiment to see, like, a modernized game feel so small because of the limitations of the PlayStation 2 way back then. But I think the thing is, when you're playing this game, and if you have the nostalgia for MGS3, this is how it felt playing it back then, if that makes sense to you, Dad. Like, this is how you would remember Metal Gear Solid 3 being, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And again, I love the original Metal Gear Solid. I did not get a chance. It's on my playlist. I have it on my backlog here. But it does 100% make sense what you're saying.
Yeah, so the gameplay fully modernized, and I do think the new gameplay modernization does feel really well, given how small the environments actually do feel, in a sense, and how easy it is. I think the options that are given are still the same, but being the flexibility of the tactical espionage genre here that he puts on display, I really like. The amount of weapons that you can find, the amount of stealth opportunities you can take, the amount of just wackiness you can get up to, figuring out like what kind of different camouflages up your camo index in order to sneak past enemies. Should I take this beehive and throw it onto someone to completely distract them and have them run the bees into somebody else? Should I throw on a crocodile uniform, swim through the water, and make someone think I'm a crocodile? Or go old school, throw on the cardboard box and see you sneak around and be like, oh, what's that? Or throw on a scientist outfit, roam through it, and see if the people catch on that you're Snake and not a random scientist just walking through. I think all of those gameplay mechanics are still pretty interesting, and they're fully on display here. I think the modernized audio and voice acting, even though it's still the same, I think really felt good here. I really liked the sound effects that were given. I liked the audio cues. Nothing beats hearing that exclamation point going above someone's head as you're spotted and alerts. The amount of Easter eggs in this game that can be found, the amount of just wackiness, like I said, that can be found it's endearing. And that's the one word I would like to use for Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater. It's an endearing game. Like, it's such fun to be had, and it's stupid most of the times. Like, I was laughing at some of the stuff that I was doing and some of the stuff in these cutscenes. Like, you'll get some of the most serious things about a Cold War, but then all of a sudden, and for anime fans out there, you'll understand this reference, you get anime fan service, which is you get characters who are well endowed to say the least. And it's so like total shifts at points, but it is still an incredible video game.
Do you feel that it really represented an Unreal Engine 5 game, or do you feel that it was, not what a real Unreal Engine 5 game looks like today?
I think Unreal Engine 5 can go so many different ways at this point. And to me, It does look like an Unreal Engine 5 game. What this game looks like graphically is like whenever you see those like fan made trailers of, oh, what would Zelda look like in Unreal Engine 5? Like using those capabilities, I do think it looks like a standard Unreal 5 game. I'm not thinking like this game doesn't look like Hellblade 2, and I didn't expect it to look like Hellblade 2. I don't expect it to look like that because at the end of the day, you are remaking it. You're getting the visuals to a certain point. And I think this game, especially the art direction that was given back then, I think the Unreal Engine graphics do match what that game was back then. So yeah, and I did play this on Xbox. I didn't run into any performance issues, but I do know that the PS5 had some performance issues along with the PC. So maybe they patched it out at this point, but I was able to run this game at a solid 60 frames on the Series X without many performance drops. I do think the lighting here was pretty spectacular, kind of like how you mentioned in the Gears review. I really like the lighting, kind of reflecting off of the water, reflecting off of the trees. I thought the shadows were really nice. I also thought the facial models were really well detailed here. They went and actually re-mocapped everything for the cutscene. So it does have an updated mocapping animation set behind it, and you can even see in like some of the word tracking on the mouths, it looks way better than it ever did back then. So I was really impressed with the graphical presentation. One thing is they did remove the green filter from the game, but it is there. You can put the green filter on. So, and I actually think that the green filter makes the game look even a little bit better than what the normal presentation shows.
Do you want to explain what the green filter is to some people that haven't played it?
Old school Metal Gear Solid 3 had this piss green filter on it. And like it made everything super green looking. And they removed it here. So that color grading is gone in the normal game, but you can get that color grading back if you really want that to be represented. Shem says, gotta go catch up with the stream later. Sorry. All good. Have a great rest of your night. Thank you for joining. So yeah, and there are moments in this game, kind of like how Gears of War holds up, that still hold up in today's standard. There's moments later in this game that for 2004, I cannot believe worked on a PlayStation 2. There are moments with the Metal Gear in this game that is one of the coolest action set pieces that I got to experience. Like, it is Uncharted levels of action set pieces, and that being on a PlayStation 2 really surprised me. And having it be modernized in today's era was awesome. Super fun to play. Now, the some of the new content for the game that I would like to get into in this package is, so the PlayStation does have content exclusive stuff that I'll get into, but in the Xbox and PC version, there is a Snake versus Bomberman mode where you get to go around and Snake fights Bomberman, which is another huge Konami franchise from way back when. So that's cool. And there was a moment in the original game where at a certain point, avoiding story spoilers, you're in prison. And if you call paramedic, which is to save the game, paramedic starts talking about the movie Dracula and says, if you start having nightmares about Dracula, let me know and we can talk about it. And when that save happened, if you reload, you went into this completely new action game. And way back when, it was actually supposed to be a demo for an upcoming action game coming out. And that game never got released. But in the remake, they actually went ahead and made a whole new nightmare sequence. And it was actually developed by Platinum Games, the developers of Bayonetta, of the upcoming Ninja Gaiden 4, and a slew of other titles that Platinum has made. And they made this called Guy Savage Delta. So they made this whole new nightmare sequence. And it was honestly really cool to see a modernized version of that, but with slick new gameplay mechanics from a whole nother developer. So that sequence is in the game, but it's completely new. Like, the old sequence that was in the PS2 version is not in this game at all. You would have to go to the PS2 version to actually experience that. I did mention there is PlayStation exclusive content. So in the OG version of the game, there was a mode called Snake Ape Escape. Ape Escape is an old school game, and in the old school MGS3, you were able to play Ape Escape with Snake, and that isn't the PlayStation 5 only version of the game because that is a PlayStation IP. So on the PlayStation 5, you can play the new version of Ape Escape, but the twist is Astrobot is also in the game. So you can go around and actually fight Astrobot and catch him with Snake in this remade version on the PS5. So I thought that was a cool little detail. That being said, though, For a $70 package, I am left a little disappointed in some areas. So I do think there are multiple versions of Metal Gear Solid 3 out there. For example, on the PS2, there is a Metal Gear Solid 3 Substance package that also included Metal Gear Online. Metal Gear Online also didn't even launch with this game. It is coming at a later date. And I was kind of excited for Metal Gear Online. I do miss the days, especially from the 360, of those single player games that also just had a multiplayer mode attached to it, like kind of like Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. It wasn't the greatest multiplayer mode in the world, but it was still a lot of fun. And that Metal Gear Online looked to be scratching that itch. But it was very disappointing to see Metal Gear Online not even being represented here right off the rip. Substance is not even in the game. Like, you cannot go experience any of the exclusive content from Substance that was in that campaign version on the PS2. You can't flip between graphical settings, kind of like how Halo Master Chief Collection did it. I thought that was an incredible feature that they had on the Master Chief Collection. And you can't switch on the fly between the legacy or the new style. You actually have to go and make a new save file to play in one of the other modes. And I thought that was really disappointing. I wish that they would have kind of let me switch on the fly. I think that is at bare minimum when you're remaking it. You already have the option there. Allow me to switch between the game modes on the fly. I can live without being able to switch between the old school graphics and the new school. Like, if you didn't have the time to develop that, that is fine. I know that takes a lot of time. But if you already have the play styles here, allow me to switch between them. I think that's a bare minimum ask. I shouldn't have to make a completely new save file in order to experience that. Would you agree?
I would 100%. I think that if it's there and you're building it, you might as well put it in. And, I certainly don't want to accuse the studio that they're trying to make more money or separating things out. And maybe they come out with a different edition. I don't know that. But yes, if you're going to to me, the remake or a remaster should have everything in, every DLC, every multiplayer, everything it should be in. I remember listening to the rumors of Gears of War when they were doing this reload that, it wasn't going to come with multiplayer in it, or it wasn't going to come with co-op. We saw the backlash that Halo came out with when it didn't come right out with the co-op, which is made, Halo, and then it didn't come out with the Forge. Like that, to me, you saw that community fall apart at that point. Yeah. To me, I don't care what you're remaking, remaster. Yes, I agree. If you have those assets, they should all be put in, DLCs, everything into one. Now, if you're going to do some exclusive content like PlayStation did with Astrobot, I'm fine with that. But when you're redoing it, this isn't a new IP. It's not a new game. You're remaking something. Put everything in it.
Yeah. I agree. So it was disappointing to see those things omitted from the game. I wish it was here. Now, the other thing I do want to touch on, because obviously it's been a hot topic ever since this thing was announced. Does it respect Kojima's legacy in any way? The answer is yes. This game is so safe. Like, this is the safest remake I've ever seen. And I'm glad it's that way, because the Metal Gear fan base is one of the most passionate fan bases. And without Kojima, I don't think you should do anything new, especially when it's remaking his work. This game is very safe. So if you've experienced Metal Gear Solid 3 in any way, you will not be experiencing anything new here. It is the exact same game. It is his exact same legacy. They preserved everything that he has ever put in there. They credit him a lot, which I was super excited to see. It is his work as intended, and it is just prettier and more modernized. There is nothing else to it. Are you happy with that?
I am, because, and again, I'll relate it back to the Gears of War. I love the fact that the Gears of War Reloaded, when you look at credits, they have the credits of the original team. They have the credits of the people that did the Ultimate, and they have the credits of the Reload. So yes, I think that you should credit the people that have, their heart and soul in this game. I don't think you should ever erase history in that. So yes, I'm glad to hear that they at least paid homage to what he did, because he's one of the best in the industry.
Yeah. And I do think that with this, I think they're leading up for more remakes of the Metal Gear Solid franchise. There are still games that are locked to PlayStation 3, which is Metal Gear Solid 4. So I hope they continue to bring these games to the modern generation. Metal Gear Solid is one of the most influential pieces of media. You can see this game be referenced so many times in other games. You can see the love that people have for this franchise. And with that, I would like to give my score. So all that being said, at the end of the day, and I'm gonna say this very carefully, Metal Gear Solid 3, the game itself, the way it was, the story has always been a 10 out of 10 for me. I think Metal Gear Solid 3 is one of the greatest video games of all time. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I absolutely adore Metal Gear Solid 3. But my official score for the Metal Gear Solid Delta remake is an 8 out of 10. I think there are so many highs with this package, being that it is still the game that I come to know and love. But there's a lot missing in this package that it is hard to say that this is worth the $70 at the moment. Like I said, it's still an amazing video game, and I can't dock any more points from it. But the lack of Metal Gear Online, the lack of Metal Gear Substance, the lack of just the extra content that is missing from this game is a little disheartening in some areas. Like, you can blow through this game in 12 hours, like for your first playthrough, looking through everything. I got all the collectibles, like I blew through this. Like, you can get a run in this game under 2 hours if you are skipping cutscenes and really want to do it. Like, part of the Metal Gear charm is the replayability and finding all the things for it. But I have been so familiar with Metal Gear 3 for the longest time that, this game, like, it is what it is. It's still Metal Gear 3 at the end of the day. So, like, the game itself, like, back then, like, I love it dearly. But this package, there is some disappointments that I wish we're still here, and I hope Konami at some point adds them in a free update. I hope they bring some new stuff with Metal Gear Online, because a lot of the substance content was with Metal Gear Online. So there's still hope to be had. But if you are a Metal Gear fan, I think this is an easy recommendation. And I would also say this is the most recommendable version of Metal Gear Solid 3. I would not recommend for someone for their first time to go on the PS2 or to go play it on the Master Collection. I would absolutely recommend this version if they have any interest in this game. Like, it is the most modernized. It's the best feeling. And, I think this is truly, the best way to play the game in the modern era. But yeah, that's my overall thoughts about Metal Gear Solid 3. And Nate Edwards says should have been $40 top. I don't make the prices, but it shouldn't have been $70. I think this could have been a $60, maybe a $50 game as it currently stands, with a lot of the missing content. Do you have anything to say on Metal Gear? You're going to play it soon, I suppose.
Yeah, I do, but I think the 30,000 foot level story to this podcast is, whether it's a remake or a remaster, both of ours hit at an 8 out of 10. Yeah. So obviously there's a place for remake remasters.
Which is my question. Are remasters and remakes good for the industry?
I absolutely do think it, because, again, not just because I'm a Gears fan, and I know I tongue-in-cheek say make it for everything and I'll play it, which I still would. But to me, I think there's games out there in the history of the games, because you brought up a valid point, that the newer generation, or even people of my generation, never played that game, to see where a lot of influence comes from. Because even Metal Gear Solid, you can see some Gears of War influence in there. You can see a lot of other games that are influenced by Metal Gear Solid, which some of the people that, of my generation that didn't play it, or a younger generation, should go back and experience these. And sometimes it's hard because they don't have the money to say, hey, I'm going to go retro game and buy that old system and buy that old game, where I think the remake remasters brings it up to this level that I think that it's 100% warranted.
Nate Edwards says Gears was $39.99, stuck to what it had to do, and Kyle said on very select occasions.
I would agree on the select occasions. I don't think they should go hog wild and just, remake, remaster. But again, at the end of the day, I don't think in today's economy that a studio is just going to remake stuff without knowing that it's going to sell. I don't think they have the resources or the people to do that now because of how long it takes a AAA title to get made now. So I don't think that they would just do it to do it. I think there has to be, some studies to show that this may hit,
Yeah, and the thing is, there comes to a point where there are too many remasters and remakes, and I think this generation, now this year in particular, not really. This year has been the last 3 years, I would say, have been pretty good with original titles, but this generation in particular, I feel like was the remaster remake generation. I feel like it has been so many of the releases coming out, and not every game needs a remaster. For example, Last of Us Part 1 already had a remaster on the PS4. It didn't need another remaster for the PS5. And I would even the same case can be made for Gears, but that being said, it was never on these other platforms. So there is a weird caveat and area to all of this. I do think the AAA video game space, the development times are getting very long, and these budgets are getting conflated. And I think there needs to be some development management to happen, because we shouldn't be relying on remasters and remakes to help fund the studios make these titles. And that's at the end of the day what it's doing is remasters and remakes are helping fund these studios to make that next big title, and they need a constant flow of cash coming in to support their titles coming up. I'm all for games being scoped down a bit and getting reduced in cost and having more games, original games and sequels come out rather than these remasters, remakes all the time. Now, that being said, I do love when a remake comes out, especially like a Metal Gear Solid, when the game hasn't been new for 20 years. Like, yeah, I think that's a no-brainer at that point. And I hope, if games are locked to certain platforms and architecturally they can't just port it, I hope a remake happens at that some point, because remasters and remakes are also good for game preservation at the end of the day. It helps bring these games into the modern era and preserves them for players to play. So what do you think about that?
Well, again, that's why I said I was happy that they did Reloaded for Gears, because it brought it to a new platform. As I opened up the podcast talking about, bringing the features of the 5, but I agree with you. The two big that come to my mind is The Last of Us should have never had a remake remaster, and Ark is another one. Ark ran out of money.
Kyle's going to be in the chat, and I agree. Ark should have never been remastered. And to be honest, okay, and I'm going to go off on a rant. The Ark remaster wasn't even that great to begin with.
I didn't see any difference.
Well, not just that, it launched with all the problems that the original game launched with that they fixed by the end. And they just said, we're just going to release the OG game with none of the DLCs. They were remastering that for the longest time.
If you went back and took a look, Ark 2 had all that money put into with Vin
Diesel's trailer.
And I think Vin Diesel took all the money for Ark 2, so they ran out of money. So they had to remake Ark 1 to try to get it, and that flopped as well. And I loved Ark. I played both the remake and the original, and there was no difference in it.
Yeah, but at the same time, they were trying to fund Ark 2. So, I understand why remasters and remakes are happening. It is economically makes sense for them, because when developing, a remaster and remake is very low cost. It does not cost much to make it. The development time for these things aren't long either. Like, the foundation is already there, unless if it is like a tentpole title like Resident Evil going to Resident Evil 2 remake. Like, when you want to fully remake that game and make it a whole new playstyle, even change some of the story. Even, for example, Final Fantasy VII to Final Fantasy VII Remake. That remake is completely different than the OG Final Fantasy VII. Completely new game. They're even changing story beats. So, it is, I think, a whole new game, just slapping that Final Fantasy VII title on there. So it's such a slippery slope, but I think the intent is good for the industry. I think remasters and remakes, the intent is good. I just think sometimes it gets abused. And I think the abusal of it is where we start to see people complain about remasters and remakes. I just want to pull a couple things in before we continue the conversation. Kyle says, I'll let it slide. Great game. Not fans of the studio, of the devs. The studio is a mess in relation to Ark. And also says Ark 2 looks so sweet, but would we even see it?
Told you, Vin Diesel took all the money. They don't have any money.
And then Nate says it's like the SNES did with Street Fighter. They made Street Fighter 2 on 3 different cartridges.
Correct.
So, but yeah, what else do you have to say about remasters and remakes? Because there's so much that we can get into, but we only have so much time. So, like, you know, we talked about 2 high profile ones. Like, at the end of the day, what are your thoughts about remasters and remakes?
Well, I think at the end of the day, one, it's got to make sense for the studio because, like you said, you know, and I'll use Bethesda as you know the example of what I'm trying to get across here. Do I want a Fallout 5? Yes. Like I would kill that Fallout 5 come out tomorrow. But the reality is that they have other games in front of that. So would I like another studio to do Fallout 3, which is, you know, on the list of a remake remaster? Of course I would. If they deflect and give that to another studio like they did, you know, with Oblivion, I'm all for that. Now it's not taking away from moving forward to the Skyrims and the
And
Fallouts.
I do want to say, and I think a lot of people don't realize this, but it is usually the B or C teams that are doing these remasters, remakes within house, or they're outsourcing it, like Bethesda did to Virtuous Studio. Like even Metal Gear Solid Delta was primarily made by third party studios. Like the core developers usually are not working on these games, and it's always the secondary teams. The main teams are always working on the next project. So,
Which again brings me to what I was going to say there. I think it helps the industry in one sense because it gives, you know, smaller studios the chance to shine. Because obviously the Oblivion remake, man, that catapulted that studio to the front of the bus because they did such an outstanding job. So one, I think it's got to make sense. Two, I think there needs to be enough, you know, fan clamoring for it. Like just don't remake it to throw it out there like it's an Arc 2
yeah.
or The Last of Us 1 to remake it. Just doesn't make sense. That to me smells a money grab, and I think that's what hurts it. And 3, I think that it is something that has to be, I don't know if they put it like, you know, it has to be so old before you get a remake, like an unwritten rule, something along that line, or like the gears, like, okay, I'm taking it to a new platform. I want to take advantage of all of their features that they have so that the that platform player could experience in the best possible experience that they can. But I think they're good for the industry. I just think that there needs to be some guidelines and you just can't go willy-nilly about it.
My
I
head,
would love to see a BioShock remake of all of them.
well, that just got canceled internally, according
I
to
know.
reports.
Correct.
I think my rule of thumb, and you know, people can take it or leave it, is the game should have to be at least 20 years old before it gets a remake. Like especially just games from the 360 era and before, like, you know, we're getting to that point. So I think has to be 2 generations or older to warrant it. I don't think something from the Xbox One, PS4 should be getting a remaster remake right now because you can still play those games backwards compatibly. Like the newer consoles already up-res them and give them the performance of today's standards. Like it's already there. You don't need to go and make a new version.
Let me just, Nate said that if there was going to be a remaster, Def Jam Fight for New York should be, and I would agree 100 times over. I just watched another podcast about 3 days ago that actually talked about that, where that in today's world would never happen. Never is a strong word, rarely happen because of all of the rights to the songs, the people, they just can't do it. That's what happens a lot with games that get pulled from the online play and so forth, is they just can't pay the royalty fees on the songs, the music. So the as cool as and I would love a new Def Jam Fight, it just wouldn't happen in today's world because everybody has their hands out for the money and it'll never
And
last.
the thing is, and I want to get to Kyle's comment, which is BioShock remake would have fed families, but I do want to point out with the Def Jam thing, as we just saw, if you do remaster it, and a lot of it is copyright issues, but Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 just came out this year. but most of the original music isn't there. And so many people are complaining. They're like, okay, fundamentally, the game is still kind of the same. It still feels great to play, but so much of Tony Hawk's like identity was the music of that time. And so much of it's gone, and they put modern music, and it doesn't fit that vibe. So I think you start to get into territory where it doesn't match what that game was, and you are losing a lot of its identity. So it is a slippery slope, and unfortunately copyright is a thing. With Kyle saying BioShock remake would have fed families, I fully agree. I wish the remake would have happened, but it got canned internally. However, the bright side to it all, Rod Ferguson is now the head of Cloud Chamber, which is the studio making BioShock. For people who don't know, Rod Ferguson was pretty much the second in command for Gears of War with Cliff Bleszinski, then became the head of Gears of War, then became the head of Diablo. He's known as the finisher. He comes in and finishes games. And anytime he attaches himself to a property, that game is usually pretty good. So I think BioShock is in good hands moving forward. Rampage says SOCOM 2 U.S. Navy SEALs needs a remastered. And there was just a podcast with Hip Hop Gamer actually was talking about it with an old Sony CEO, Sean Layden. And they talked about SOCOM getting remastered. And funny enough, SOCOM was one of the ones where they don't know if it would actually fit in today's generation. And to me, I also agree. I don't like, as much as I liked SOCOM, I don't know if SOCOM truly has a place in today's gaming sphere. I think it's the military shooter. It's hard to break into nowadays. And SOCOM does have that lineage and legacy behind it. But I really don't know if SOCOM could compete. It would have to come out with a battle royale. Like, unfortunately, that's like the way it is. Like, Battlefield has to have a battle royale, and Battlefield, like, I think is going to hopefully overtake Call of Duty this time. I think it's setting itself up, but you have giants like Battlefield even failed for a bit because of its misstep and how giant of a Call of Duty is. Like, you have these niche titles, and I think SOCOM would probably best fit into the popularity of like a Hell Let Loose or Squad, if you know what those games are. But I don't think it would be as popular as it once was, and I think that's why they're kind of avoiding the franchise as is. And lastly, Nate Edwards says Wu-Tang, though, and SOCOM was the OG online, lost so many hours.
That'd be the Wu-Tanger.
Hey, Nate, there is a new Wu-Tang game coming out. They announced it, so the Wu-Tang love is there. They've been showing the game off at the concerts that were happening for their last tour, but there is a new beat-em-up style video game coming out that looks pretty awesome.
Get a little ODB Sun in there for a little bash up. I'm on it.
So I would like to start wrapping down this podcast. I'd like to thank everyone for watching our first reviews ever on the podcast of Gears of War Reloaded and Metal Gear Solid Delta. We are going to be reviewing another game next week, which is going to be Chronos: The New Dawn. Super excited to talk about this one. I have been absolutely loving this game, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts about it and my thoughts once I'm fully finished with it by the end of this week. As a reminder, please follow all of our socials, like and subscribe to this video. That greatly appreciates it. Share us to all your friends, family, coworkers, anyone. We would love to hear more people's thoughts about video games and just get you in and chatting with you guys. Trying to grow a community here of passionate gamers. And, you know, we're passionate too, and we just like to talk about it. With that being said, we are live every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern and 4 p.m. Pacific right here on the Active Reload Gaming channel. And on YouTube, we've been posting other videos as well. We have the Valor Mortis developer interview that was cut from the podcast. It's as its own 18-minute video that you can go and watch. We also have an unboxing of the Metal Gear Solid Delta Collector's Edition that I did, and I applied the piss green filter to the video for fans of the video game, so you can go see that as well. Dad, do you have anything else to say before we get out of here?
I do not. I just greatly appreciate it. Get on our Discord. We have a podcast question. We'd love to hear if there's anything that you'd like to see us do on the podcast, a topic. We'd love to hear from you guys.
Yeah. And I know last week we said we were going to give away a Gears of War Reloaded code, and we forgot to do that because we were in the middle of PAX West. It was very hectic. But I did throw everyone who commented into the chat today, and the winner is Shemplu of Gears of War Reloaded. So we're going to reach out to you. You're going to get a code for Gears of War Reloaded. So congratulations. Please join our Discord. We'll be happy to see you guys there. And with that, we will see you guys next week.